Hello, YouTube friends. So, as some of you will know, I recently spent some time out touring America and Canada. This was just after I resigned my position from the Daily Dot. Just to clear up a bit of, not misinformation, but people are speculating. So, no, I wasn't fired. It came out of left field to the Daily Dot, but it was something that I've been mulling over for about a month. I've communicated in a newsletter to all the Patreon supporters exactly sort of why that was. I think my Facebook post I made and put publicly was a fair summary about it. But there was a lot. There's a lot going on in the world of esports right now, and a lot that I feel like can be better suited to influence if I don't have the day-to-day worry of needing to be based in a journalistic capacity and having to write and hit certain quotas and that kind of thing. Now, I'm not ruling out a return to journalism. I've had a lot of job offers, some really surprising actually, and there's a few interviews coming up. I definitely see myself going back to a major and prominent publication. It could be one that's not covered esports before. It could be something that's new, like a lifestyle publication. It could be, I don't know, there's literally all these different offers flying at me. I could even just be writing for the Daily Dot on a freelance basis. Certainly, we parted on great terms. I still think it's the best website in terms of esports reportage, and they will always be very close to my hearts indeed. So, my hearts, and I've only got one, but I might need two. But anyway, point being, that we all know that one of the things I was really passionate about starting was a players' union, and I was going to this conference in San Francisco to speak about a few things. Now, I had a 15 to 20 minute talk on journalism in esports, because obviously it's still a fledgling industry. There's not really a lot of us, and of course the money makers, the influencers, they generally kind of push back against journalism. So it's a very maligned part of the industry. So I was talking about that, but I also moderated a couple of panels, one of which was about regulation in esports. Now, what I was principally doing while I was there, because how this conference worked, was people could pay money to attend, and you got to meet other people in esports, other experienced people in esports, and have talks and come up with ideas. And there was investors there that were looking to invest in things, big businesses, etc., etc. So I spent my time collaring these people and saying, look, right, before you do anything bad with your money, let me just tell you what the scene actually needs. And the last thing it needs is, what's that? What are you making? Yeah, we've got 10 of them already. Okay, we've got 10 of them. Yours might be better, might be shiny, but we got 10 of them. We don't need that. So I went out for lunch with several lunches. Christ, I mean, in America, you can imagine. Like, I'm going on a fucking cleanse diet real soon, because it was just unbelievable. But I went out to a bunch of lunches and had a bunch of drinks with a bunch of people, and I was saying to them, look, if we can get funding for a union, that's going to really help out the scene. And they all were kind of looking at me going, well, what do you mean? And I'm going, okay, well, what I want is a one-time cash injection, right, where you get zero equity and therefore zero input. We make this thing, I preside over it for 3 months. Then all the players that sign up to it, they vote on who they want to run it moving forward. I most likely stand down at that point, because I do believe that the head of a players' union should be maybe an ex-player. Not a current one, though. I'll get into that in a second. But definitely an ex-player would be good. And then, I'm out of the picture, but they don't get to influence it. So they were like, well, what's in it for us? It just sounds a ridiculous proposal, Richard. And I said, well, it is if you're looking for a financial return. But you're an investor, you're smart enough to realize that, we put it out there that you fucking put the money in to make this thing possible. it's a feather in your cap for the rest of your life. It gives you genuine esports credibility. And while the scene grows as a direct result of having a players' union that looks after the welfare of players, which is only going to be beneficial to the scene, it's only going to encourage more people to go professional, it's only going to give parents the belief and security that their children are going to be looked after and can go into this industry, that it can be a career. As that grows, guess what? There's more investment opportunities. And who do you think people are going to want to take investment from? The people that altruistically started a player union, or and clearly therefore must have an understanding of what esports needs, or a bunch of strangers, right? So that was my pitch, basically, and it went well, right? So I got a bunch of people telling me, all right, how much do we need? So we've been kicking ideas around for what's going to work, and I genuinely think at this stage we can get this funded, genuinely, right? So that's point number one. All good so far. This is where it gets the waters get a little bit choppy. So I do know that, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this by now, but on the CS side of things, I reached out to a bunch of people in Europe, and I was like kind of saying, just putting the feelers out, just like quietly. I was going to write an open letter, I thought I might be a little bit dramatic, like circulate it privately. I don't know what's best. But I basically was talking to people in Europe, like, you know me, right? Like, you remember when you had that money, and I wrote the emails for you, and we got it, and I did that, I'm okay, right? We could do this. They're like, yeah, we totally vouch for you. Well, anyway, there was a few players, I think, that don't like the idea of me being involved in the union, which, look, this is about player welfare, so I don't care. Whatever players think is a consensus needs to happen. Right, and if that means that we can't use Richard Lewis, he used to be a journalist. He's written things. We don't know if we can trust him. Whatever that is, that's fine as long as it's the consensus. But what I think's happened is we've kind of had these like fracturing of groups, and this is what I'm worried about. So I did see, a lot of the American players have already had talks about this and got together, and as far as they're concerned, they are now in a union. And that's fine, right? That's great, good start. But what I don't want, or what I don't think would be beneficial, would be if we ended up with a group that was exclusive. Okay, so be it by geography, perceived skill level, status. I don't think that, as someone that's been a trade union representative before, you cannot start on that ground. You cannot be like, this is an exclusive club. It's got to be open to all. There's no reason to think that the issues of somebody at the top are going to be vastly different to someone at the bottom. In fact, more often than not, in my experience, when I was doing it for employees, it was the lower level employees that needed the services more than the upper echelons. They had access to stuff, and they were more entrenched in the commercial machinery, so they were protected more. So, and I think that kind of could be true here. You think about some of the smaller teams that are attending events. What's their recourse in terms of getting money back? For example, they don't have big Twitter followings. They can't shame people. If something doesn't blow up on Reddit, they're kind of fucked. And we shouldn't be in a position where we have to leverage the community through public shaming just to get companies to do the right thing, especially when players have all this power. But that power for the elite level players needs to be distributed evenly across all the players that join into the union. That's how it has to happen. So I do have some concerns. And equally, because they don't want any managers involved, and owners involved, and that's absolutely on the money, by the way. You definitely need to stick to that. The last thing I want is like, we've been fighting for a union for fucking 10 years, and then like 2 or 3 come along at once. And it's going to happen that way. I mean, already League of Legends people are talking about maybe making their own, and it doesn't involve CS players. I don't think that's going to be good either. I don't want us to see us divided by games. CS players union, League of Legends players union. Especially when organizations have squads. The last thing you would want is if, say, for example, a rogue organization wasn't paying the CS team, wasn't paying the league team, the league union was more effective, or or their team was in that union, and therefore they get the money, and the CS players get fucked still. That doesn't work. That's not better for anyone. So anyway, just the things that we've got in place already, and it's just a case of getting the right company that we know are ethically sound to cut the check. Is going to be obviously we need a website. That's fine, piece of piss, get that done. No problem. But the services that we can offer already are, I've already reached out to a bunch of lawyers regionally that will do pro bono work, or will have a slush fund in place to cover them at a nominal fee, so they still get paid. Depends on the issues, the expertise. I spoke with agents who have agreed to get involved for player contract negotiations. We spoke to accountants that are willing to offer their services at a very greatly reduced level for any players that have any tax concerns. We've spoken with mental health representatives that have agreed to help should that be required. And the other thing, and this is one of the hugely important parts I want to do, is I think one of the great problems affecting players right now is this buyout culture we've moved towards. And this is increasingly happening, where players have a buyout in their contract. So a buyout clause is a player can pay a certain amount of money to be out of his contract. It doesn't necessarily mean a third party can do it. It depends on the wording. But ultimately, in a lot of esports contracts, what we've got is a player can pay 20,000, 50,000, whatever it is, to get out from under a contract. But the team owners, the people that control that contract, are under no obligation to tell the player about other opportunities. So let's say you're a player and you've signed one of these contracts and you've signed this buyout, right? And you sat there and I can pay 20,000. I got 20,000 in the bank and I know I can pay it. And if I get out, I get out. But what if I can't get a job afterwards and I've just wasted my 20 grand savings? Risk, isn't it? And it creates culture of fear, and that culture of fear is what locks players in, right? To being beholden to some of these contracts. And indeed, contract owners don't have to sell a player. The value of a player isn't necessarily the value of the buyout. Indeed, we've seen multiple instances where teams have asked for way more than the buyout clause from a player, so they're locked in again, right? And they never even get to hear about it. So one of the things that I wanted eventually to be able to do, if we could have enough capital injected from the start, would be to have a system where players could maybe take, if they wanted to get out of a contract for whatever reason, they could effectively borrow the money to do that, and then pay it back on a agreed rate once they got a new job. Okay, so garnishing the salary or whatever, right? But at a reduced percentage, because ultimately, if we have a slush fund in place and we don't need the money now, obviously that's way down the line. That's something we want to be doing in the future. But I think that would be an example of how having a one-time cash injection could be really useful. There was some other stuff that was on my mind and that I wanted to be able to implement. But the key thing was ultimately to basically act as not a middleman, but we put you in touch with the people that can get you what you need. We put you in touch with the people that can provide the specific service you require, and we do it anonymously, and we do it in a way that protects you. And indeed, it would be beneficial to the organizations to do it this way, because it gets done quietly, behind closed doors, and with a third-party mediator to resolve conflict. The other thing that I had an idea for, and another reason why we would need this cash injection, is if you've ever been to university, you might have heard of this, and these were hugely helpful for working class people like myself that went to study. You used to be able to get things called crisis loans, or like emergency bursaries, and basically it was literally, if you ever found yourself too poor to eat or to do anything money-wise, you could apply for these crisis loans. and you would give the reason why you needed them. You know, you would put down your income, how much money you'd had. They'd look at like expenditure, whether or not you had anything you could cut realistically yourself, and then they would make a decision about whether or not to give you this money, and you didn't pay it back. It was a gimme. It was like if you were deemed, if it was deemed essential that you had this for survival purposes, obviously you got it. And I think this could be something as well that we could offer players. You know, like it's shocking actually to me. There's a lot of players that are playing and have the expectation to be professional, and they have the hours expected of them that a professional would commit. They have to put in the same level of commitment in terms of media promotion that a professional would, and yet they're not salaried. And this isn't just CS. This is league. This is everything. And these players very often find themselves in financial dire straits. What can they do? Who can they turn to? Sometimes they borrow from fellow pros, or pros in the sense that people get paid. Sometimes they borrow from managers. Bad system in place to be doing. The last thing you want to do is have an outstanding debt to someone that has a power dynamic over you. You know, that's about. There's so many bad things happening behind the scenes, and I think cutting through that, like just having small little cash injections. You know, if you ever find yourself unable to afford food, for example, which I've heard has happened on more than one occasion in the League of Legends Challenger scene, we should the union can be there to offer that as well as a service. So I mean, what I want to do is I guess at this juncture I kind of need to know if any of this sounds like something that the players want to get involved in, and whether we can get some big group meetings going forward and try and create something solid, and try and create something that's tangible and something that has a structure. Because if we can, I think this is the start. I think this is where it actually all begins, where the player union totally begins. I don't just want it to be collective bargaining against events. I don't just want it to be people bitching on Twitter as a group. It's got to be better than that. We can really do something here. And I know there's a lot of people with a lot of money that are actually coming around to our way of thinking, and we need to capitalize on that and strike while the iron's hot. So anyway, this is just an update to you guys. I get asked about the union thing a lot. And just to make it absolutely clear, it's not something I want to do for the rest of my life. It's not something I want to do long term. But I think if I jump in, get some money, get everything set up, get everything positioned, get the players' license ultimately to do this, in the sense that they feel supportive of my efforts, and they understand that they can trust me. Even players that I might not have got along with in the past, like all of that petty shit can stop for this. This is way more important, right? Like we can get back to bitching each other 6 months down the road or whatever. So the other thing we would definitely put in place it would be quite clear that after X amount of time, probably 3 months, to get everything up and running, you would just hold an open election, and you would just elect somebody to be the player spokesperson, the head of the union, whatever you want to call them. So this video is just sort of, I'm just putting it out there, just throwing it out there, because even though I can reach out to a lot of pros directly, I want us to get this, we can all do this, all levels of player, to basically clean up this industry, protect player rights, and make things better. We can do that. And it's probably quicker to record a video to tell you about what I've been doing in America, rather than reach out to everyone individually and repeat the same shit over and over again. So anyway, the good news is I think we're really close. I think we're really, really close to something that's been so essential and so vital to the industry for so long. And I hope whether I'm involved or whether this other union can be effective, whether I can pass on the contacts, the resources, like whatever we need to do to make this work, let's just get it done as soon as possible, so players can be playing in safe environments and being rewarded financially and on a welfare level in a way that's commensurate to any professional sports person. Anyway, so there's the update. Thanks a lot for listening to that, and I will no doubt see you on the next video. Take care.